Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. It's Saturday. I'm just having my coffee and I'm gonna make some breakfast. And I'm gonna chat about what happened this week, actually yesterday, which was a bit of an eye-opener for me. But first, let's get some breakfast because I'm hungry. And I'm gonna have one of my favorite things to have, which is yogurt and granola. So this Riviera yogurt is made in Quebec, and it's delicious. You can sometimes find the little jars too. And we also need a couple other things. We also need our granola, and I'm using Nature's Path peanut butter granola, made in Canada, and some hemp seeds for good omegas, and I'm going to add a tiny bit of maple syrup, which won't surprise any of you guys who know me well. So let's first get that going. So how's everybody doing out there? Does it feel like we live in a very weird world right now? I know I'm feeling like we live in a very weird world right now. And I am positive I am not the only one. I love this peanut butter one. They've got lots of other ones. There's also a pumpkin one. Pumpkin and flaxseed, I think, one. But I don't see it that often. The peanut butter is just delish, and it's got some peanuts in it as well. And I add little hemp seeds. Now, you can add berries to this. I'm not a berry person. The texture of berries kind of grosses me out. I'll put blueberries in muffins and pancakes, and I will sometimes eat a strawberry. I don't like grapes. I just don't like berries. It's the seeds and the texture of them. I eat a lot of other fruits, but I don't eat a lot of berries. So I'm not adding berries here. And yes, the pumpkin granola and the yogurt is sweet, but I'm going to add some maple syrup in it anyways, because I love maple syrup. And you guys know I put that on everything. Well, almost. That is such a good breakfast. Super easy to make. And healthy. All right, so let's talk about what happened yesterday. So yesterday afternoon, as I was sitting on the couch there having my lunch, a late lunch, it was like 1:20, 1:24, 1:30, I'm not sure. I was just sitting there having my lunch, and all of a sudden I heard a sound, felt a sound. Is that a thing? I felt something that the first thing I thought of was, you know, the rumble that a great big like gravel truck or something will make if it's like coming up alongside you. That's the sort of sound and vibration that I felt right away. That's where my mind went. Turned out that's not what it was. It would have been very odd for me to feel that given where I am parked, where the tiny house is parked. But no, right after that, the ladder that leans up against the closet, the ladder for the loft, started rattling against the closet. And my jars and glasses started shaking a little bit. Everything, the whole tiny house started to shake, vibrate. And I realized what I was feeling was an earthquake. Now, I have lived on Vancouver Island now for 2.5 years. And there have been earthquakes since I've been on the island. But I've never felt one before. They've never been strong enough for me to feel. This one was off the coast of the Sunshine Coast, off Seashelt, which is a community on the Sunshine Coast, which is on the mainland side of the Bering Sea. Vancouver Island's on the other side of that. But it was in the water between. And it was, I think, a 4.2. I sometimes hear 5.1. I took a screenshot of the alert. I didn't actually get alert on my phone. I had to go and look for the information. Some people did get sort of that alert signal on the emergency alert signal on their phones, but not everybody. And it didn't seem to be a carrier thing, so I don't know what's going on. But anyways, so yeah, that was my first hurricane. That was my first like actual physically felt earthquake on Vancouver Island. Now, I knew that this area is earthquake prone. It's part of what they call the Ring of Fire that goes all around the world. This area is part of that, and so therefore prone to earthquakes. And I think the last major devastating earthquake that hit this area was about 300 years ago. But of course, it's only a matter of time till another one happens. This was not that. I've been hearing about, like in Vancouver and such, and other communities, areas where they have their engineers out inspecting the bridges and all of that to make sure that they are safe. Other infrastructure like that to make sure that it's safe. But I haven't heard of any casualties. I haven't heard of any major damage or anything like that. So we're very grateful for that, obviously. I'm very grateful for that, obviously. But it was a very surreal experience because your brain, especially when you live in an area, there's parts of the world, for those of you who live in those areas, where your brain automatically goes to earthquake because the area you live in has them so often and they're so strong and so dangerous. That is not my mindset. I lived in Alberta for years and years and years and years, and then moved to Vancouver Island. And while intellectually you know that there's such a thing as earthquakes here, if you've never actually felt one, you don't know what it feels like, what it sounds like, that sort of thing. But it was a surprise. My brain took seconds to process it. And then, in school, you are taught what to do in an emergency. In an earthquake, you are taught to stop, drop, and take cover. We did these exercises in school when I was, I think in elementary school was the last time I remember doing one. And we would get under the desks in our classroom. That would be sort of the thing. You stopped, you dropped, and you got under something solid. I've been thinking in here since then, what would I get under that was solid? I guess my desk, my office desk there, because there's really not much else in the tiny house. There's no real furniture. I didn't do that because I was just in shock. And it was over so quickly. I don't think the earthquake lasted more than a few seconds, really. It certainly wasn't more than like 5 seconds, 10 seconds tops. It's hard to sort of estimate. So it was over quickly. It was around long enough for me to wonder about the rumble, start to hear and see the shaking, certainly feel it, have my brain comprehend, oh, shit, this is an earthquake, and then sit there for another second or two before it stopped. So obviously my instincts were not very good, and luckily I didn't need to. I do think that if it had continued, I would have gotten out of the house, grabbed Soph and gotten out of the house, because that really is what you're supposed to do, and stood in the middle of the meadow there. Sophie, she was sleeping under the blankie, under the quilt on my bed, and she stayed sleeping. So it didn't last long enough for her to get bothered. I don't know if she would have reacted if she was awake, but she stayed asleep, which is good because then I know I could have grabbed her. If she was awake and freaking out, that would have been hard for me to grab her. But yeah, that happened this week. We had an earthquake, and you know what it got me thinking? It got me thinking about a grab bag. They're called bug out bags in the prepper world. The thing is, when you live in an area, you should have one anyways, but certainly when you live in an area that is prone to natural events like this, tornadoes, hurricanes, flooding, that sort of thing, high winds, I should have something easy to grab fast. A bag that has a change of clothes, some socks and underwear, medications, easy food like granola bars, bottled water, important documents. I should have that, and I don't have that, which surprises me, given that I think of myself as somebody who likes to be prepared. I don't have that. So let me tell you something. I'll be putting one of those together. I'm going to find an old duffel bag. Pretty sure I have one under my bed. And I'm going to throw some of those things in there. Now, here's the thing. You can build yourself a bug out bag, but where do you keep your bug out bag? You should keep it right by your door. In the closet by my door is where that needs to go. And it doesn't need to be big. It can be something small. I think with the important documents, what I'm going to do is scan and email them to myself. That might be a better thing to do than having them in that bag. And maybe some little packets of cat snacks so that Sophie has something. Just enough so that if you have to run out of your house in an emergency, you can grab that, throw it on your back so your hands are still free, and get yourself and your loved ones out of the house and have something with you so you don't have nothing with you. They've been talking about that a lot on the radio and the news. I know the basics to put in it, and I'll sort of tweak the rest. And we're going to have that ready because while this sort of thing doesn't happen all the time, and certainly this one wasn't a big one and didn't cause any damage, you don't know when these things can happen. And I feel like I should have been more prepared, and I wasn't. So I'm going to get prepared. Another thing that people often don't think about in situations like this, especially if you're like me and you don't come from an area that has this sort of event as a possibility, is what to do in the house. First of all, you got to get out of the house. But if you have gas lines, propane, like I have a propane tank, if it was something really big, I would be turning off my propane tank. I can get to it, the lid lifts up. There's also a lever in the shed that turns off the propane into the house. It's just a little flat lever. But I would turn the nozzle at the tank off because it's easy to get to, and I can do it quick. So that would be really important, and I think most people forget about that when they are evacuating in a situation like that. You should turn your gas off, because if that connection gets disrupted and there's a leak, and that could be very, very bad. And you might not know until you come home, or it might catch fire. You just don't know. That's really the only thing that I would be thinking about doing before I totally moved away from the house. If something, big happened, would be turning the propane off, because that's the only utility that I would worry about in the tiny house. Otherwise, it's all just stuff, right? Just get me, get Sophie, get out. But a wake-up call, right? It was, my adrenaline was just pumping afterwards. And I sat there, like I said, and in my brain, I'm like, intellectually, I'm like, that was an earthquake. But my brain was like, nah, so I'm on, the first thing I did was open up the Facebook community pages, and everybody's like, did you feel the earth move? Like, did I just feel shaking? And yeah, then of course, then it was all on the news, and then it was everywhere. So yeah, it was a thing. I think the people that were closer to the Sunshine Coast got it a little bit stronger. So maybe for them, it was stronger. But for here, it was enough to feel it, seriously feel it, hear things rattle. And that was not something I expected to feel. Even though intellectually I knew I was in an area that I could have that happen. Because there have been earthquakes reported in the news since I've been here. Nothing this big. There's no worry about tsunami or anything like that, because it's in that Bering Sea area, not out to the ocean side. So there's no worries about that. There was an aftershock that happened, I don't know, about an hour or a bit after. I didn't actually feel that. Well, I kind of think I did, but it didn't really register until after when I heard the news talk about it. But it didn't shake anything in the house. It was sort of a little rumble, little sort of feeling of vibration. So very odd. Exciting, but not in a way that I need to have happen again. And a reminder that while we can't control so many things in our world, we can prepare ourselves for when those unexpected things happen. And a bug out bag is one of those things that we should have. We should have it for natural disasters. We should have it for fires in our homes. What happens if there's a fire in the house and I have to evacuate? I can grab at least one bag and Sophie if it's packed and ready to go. And I do think that emailing yourself copies of your important documents is a good idea. Make sure your password is really strong. Here's my trick for a password. I choose a line from a song that I really love, or a favorite line, quote from a movie. And I make my password the first letter of that sentence, that quote. I alternate uppercase and lowercase. I will add in a date or a number. That is such a good way to give yourself a secure password that you'll remember, because so many of these auto-generated passwords that they give you as options, I will never remember that. So I'll have to write that down, which then therefore makes it less secure because I have written it down. But if I choose a line from a movie, let's say this one. This is not one that I've used or will ever use, but let's just say this one. Let's say that line from The Hobbit where I love it, where Sam is talking to Gollum and he goes, potatoes, boil them, mash them, stick them in a stew. Love that line. That would be a great one. You use the first letter or the last letter of every word in that quote. Alternate uppercase and lowercase. Add in a date, or a number or something like that in there just randomly. You will remember that and it will be secure. And so when you send yourself your secure documents, copies of your secure documents, they're in an email account that can't be hacked. Even if it's downloading all of your contacts into a spreadsheet and emailing yourself that. Because while you might lose your phone, you can log on to your email on any computer. So after the fact, you could do that. That's something to think about as well. So anyways, I just wanted to chat about that. Let me know if you live in an area where this sort of, or these kinds of things happen. And if you have a bug out bag, a ready bag, whatever you call it, ready to go. And if you do, please share what you put in it, because that would be awesome for everybody in the comments to sort of see what other people are putting in there. It will probably be specific to your part of the world. Might be different than my part of the world. If you live in a really cold climate, you're probably going to put some heavier duty, warmer items in there. If you have children, you're going to put some items for them in there. They might each have their own little tiny backpack ready to go. But I think it's a good idea. And it makes sense. And definitely something that I'm going to do. All right, so I'm going to eat my breakfast and drink my coffee. And there's a recipe that I want to try to make for vegan meatloaf. That looks really good. I found it online. And so I'm going to just check my ingredients, see what I've got, see if there's anything that I need. I think I have pretty much everything. It calls for oats, I know that, and onions. And I can't remember what else. I just took a screenshot of it when I saw it. So I'm going to get the ingredients, make sure I have the ingredients and make that today. With mashed potatoes, because everybody loves potatoes, or at least I do. And if you don't love potatoes, we can still be friends, but I question your life choices. I'm just kidding. Anyways, guys, I hope you guys are doing well. I hope you're staying safe. Remember, especially staying safe. Remember, in a world where you can be anything, be kind. At this time in our existence, those words mean more than anything. Be kind to everyone, including yourself. I love you, and I'll see you next time. Now, I know I can't sign off without you guys saying hi to Soph. Oh, did you hear her? There we go. Sophie. What you doing in there? Hi. This is Sophie's safe spot. Right, kitty?
Okay, I'll leave you alone. You go right back to